time constraints that women face in terms of settling down, especially if they're considering natural, like having children naturally.
Because you think me at 19 was the finished article, far from it. And if my wife wasn't a forgiving person and somebody, not so forgiving because I didn't do anything bad, but if she wasn't somebody that was patient and willing to put the effort in, really kind of the things that Cara talked about at the beginning of this talk, then I wouldn't be who I am. That's for sure.
Would you say you molded each other?
100%. The longer you stay together, she rubs off on me, I rub off on her. There are definite things I can say that she would have not have done that 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And she's much better for it, and equally with me, right? And sometimes I think to myself, I know this may sound a little bit cheesy, but this is the truth. When I come in a situation, I think, how would my wife think about this? What would she do in this situation? Because I respect her not just her views, but the way she conducts herself.
Yeah.
So I say to myself, let me stop for a minute. What would she do in it? And so I'm thinking, I'm replaying in my head, and I emulate what I think she would do because that's who I look up to.
This is your partner. This is why you're bound. Partnership, full partnership. This is what I tried to aim for in seeking a suitor. Well, I've got a suitor now, but yeah, when you try to, somebody of a like mind, and the thing is, it's like she's always on your mind. When the decision, you're faced with a decision, you think of your partner. When you're faced with anything, you think of your partner. Why? Because it's like they're part of you essentially, and that's how it should feel. I believe anyway.
You said just there, they've now been replaced with
nonsense.
Shorter, quicker ways of trying to emulate the same thing.
Yeah.
You talked about communication. I imagine communication being actually literally talking on the phone and sitting where the phone was because there was no mobile, or there probably might be.
Correct.
There was only 5. I know it was only.
You got one of these, like
phone box.
Phone box. Yeah, right. But I'm saying, like, imagine the effort. I'm talking about. Imagine the effort that you would have had to put in to do these things.
Yeah.
And my thing is actually communication now is very different. You know, communication is actually via
everything.
a multitude of different apps, voice notes, quick text. There's no,
and the level of effort we need to put in for things.
Correct.
Cool stuff.
Absolutely. When you think about when I met my missus, again, similar age, I was 19. I think we started doing it when I was 19. Again, the same thing. I think you touched on it earlier, Uncle. Things that get pumped into from like your parents or from the older generation. For me, I held those things really dear to me, and I can say at a younger age, I was probably known a little bit as someone who's probably just too much of an old head on like young shoulders, or
I like that,
just grumpy or moany and stuff like that. But if I think about it, some of those, you know, that type of life or certain things that I was doing felt right for me because actually, you know what? I'm seeing what my mum and dad are doing. I'm seeing that actually they've been married a certain amount of time, and actually that's what I wanted to go and do. So actually, when I was seeking a partner, that's what it was. It was looking at someone who had the same type of, and the opposites can attract, of course, but when you have that feeling, that's really what it boils down to. Like you said, you put effort into trying to, you know, seek more of it. You know, if I think about what my weekends were like at one point, it may not be great. Well, do you know what? I did go out there, but when I'm talking about when I used to go and like see my missus down at the effort that was put in. You know, she lived nowhere near me at the time, and we spent like 2.5 years driving between London and where she was at uni. You know, that was. And I wanted to go and do it. My thing was actually, that's what I wanted to go and do.
Of course.
You know, I was happy to spend my weekends there, you know. And there was even some times where I was down there and she actually had a weekend job, and I was just there by myself with the rest of her uni friends and stuff like that.
Waiting for her to come back, Stu.
Yeah.
Just waiting, just hanging around.
This is real stuff. This is effort. You know, effort is so valuable.
Yeah, it's effort. And when I think about it, you know, when we talk about like quality, like what did I think was quality at the time? It was actually saying, do you know what, this is someone who looks and sounds different to what I'm
everyone else
experiencing. And you know what? When you see that, it stands out like a sore. It actually stands out like a sore thumb. And that's why I was saying a bit earlier, right? You know, if there are some people out there that feel like, you know, they've hit a wall, or if they've hit a bit of bad luck, or whatever it may be, it's a mixture of two things. Yeah, stay true to yourself, but at the same time, if it's that important to you, put yourself in the right position. You know, you're not going to find a partner staying at home. You know, you get some people saying, oh, I can't find a partner in a rave. Well, I'll tell you what, I know some people who are married and they've met in a rave, for example.
They're still raving.
You know, don't take some of those ideals, which are sometimes a bit dated, but just silly. You're not going to meet someone at a day party. Why not? You know, my thing is actually,
you never know.
Invest their time to find out who that person is. You may find that actually that person who's having a bit of a great time for a friend's birthday, she actually might be the person. But again, if you're looking at what you see for the next half an hour when her song's on, it may not be what you think. But I tell you what, speak to her for enough time, spend some time with her for enough time.
Again, that's effort. Yeah. Putting the right effort on the right things.
With effort, and I think the effort now is just
gone.
It's so short. It can,
the effort is a like on a photo. The effort is a comment.
Literally,
on a photo.
I hope she DMs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Literally.
It's just terrible.
Tell them what we said the other day. We was talking about this the other day about the like.
Don't get me. Sometimes I've fallen into it where I'm scrolling through Instagram and I've liked someone that I know's photo. And I feel in myself that I've spoken to that person for that day, or I've had an interaction with them for that day. I know in my head, but it feels like I had a little bit of an interaction, and I can just imagine what people who are fully ingrained in Instagram, how they feel. Like they're going through their feed, liking, commenting, and they feel like I've socialized today. I've done my part for society today, but you haven't.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing, Stuart, is just touching back on the points you were making. And I just want to give a real life example. This is a female friend of mine who is in her early 40s now. 10 years ago, so Cara, she's roughly the same age as you. Mm-hmm. She had come out of a very bad relationship. She was single, she had no children. And I'll never forget, she said to me, she lived in Clapham. She said we worked together, and she said, oh, I met this guy in this pub yesterday and blah, blah, blah. And she's a very funny person. The point about her is that even when life was really tough, she always exuded positivity. She always really gave out such great vibes. So she was a great person to be around. So she tells me she met this guy in this pub, and it was very innocuous meeting. Literally bumped into each other. Anyway, cut a long story short, they hitch up. 10 years down the line, they're now happily, blissfully married, 3 children, right? They've emigrated to Canada. He's Canadian. And I always had to talk about her because her life changed because she went to some pub in Clapham and she bumped into this guy, and she's a very chatty person. In terms of her positivity really made it easy for people to want to talk to her and be with her and get to know her and get to like her and consequently get to love her. So while there are all these pressures out there, the point I think that you were making, Stu, about being positive and never giving up hope, because you just don't know. We just don't know where that person could be. And it literally, as you said, could be around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Be more accountable as well for who we're picking, the partners that we're choosing, because we're building up, a lot of the times we're building up these pictures of how things are in general through the experience we have. We can't help but do that as human beings. Mm-hmm. But when we have a bad experience, are we actually going back to the start and thinking, okay, what are the red flags that I saw before I went for the guy or before I went for this girl? Mm-hmm. What are the things I can do going forward that might mitigate, me getting into this situation again? And I think, especially when I hear certain things from women, like there's no good men out there. Mm. You might be a big woman. You're responsible for your life. You can go out there and pick whoever you want to be with. You have a right to like what you like. Mm. Yeah. But when you keep on picking the same person over and over again and you're not seeing a pattern, you cannot say there's no men out there because you keep on picking the same person over again. Yeah, and I think it's not just a women thing, but I hear it more from the women's side. It's like, well, there's no good men. There's no good men. That's it. Like I'm done. And it's like, but hold on, you pick who you pick.
Why do you think you don't hear it as much from men that they're no good women though?
Honestly,
as
Cara,
you said,
Men do say it.
Just very, very quickly, we have a much wider pool.
Yeah. And I agree.
A 50-year-old man, but you could go and check a 35-year-old woman, a 30-year-old woman, and society doesn't go anything. That's not not too bad, is it? Now, not to say that a 50-year-old woman can't check a 30-year-old man, but let's just say it happens a lot less.
And I agree, and I think that's part of the problem as well. There's a smaller pool in that respect. Also, if I'm correct, London is the population of women is slightly higher.
Probably.
As well.
Probably.
I'm not sure how that sits globally anymore, but there was a time when
more women.
In the world there were more women. In terms of time as well, like time constraints that women face in terms of settling down, especially if they're considering having children naturally.
Yeah.
It's a bigger deal, and I think that's where we start to lose a little bit more choice in terms of where men have more time and a larger pool to pick from.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're going to say the same as me in terms of the choice to settle down as well, whether they want to or not. Women, as a rule, seem to want to do it more and earlier than men. So that presents an issue as well.
Agreed. But then that goes back to one of the first statements I made regarding men and women.
The world changing, and we're not the same.
And we're not the same.
We are not the same.
We're not equal.
We bring different things to the table.
Hey, what you cooking,